Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me show you how you can print labels with your Mac. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. Now recently when I did a video on using the new mail merge feature in Pages, several people were disappointed that you couldn't use this to print labels. The idea with mail merge is you're adding one name or address or other type of information per page, but labels of course are several on a page. So to print labels it's a very different technique and it's something that you could have done all along. There's no special functionality needed. I should note before we begin though that if you want to just print labels from the addresses in your contacts, you don't need Pages at all. You can go to the Contacts app, select the addresses you want, go to File, Print, and then from there click Show Details, and then you can choose Style, Mailing Labels, and from here you can print as labels, even choosing from many different standard label types. But to do this from Pages, first we want to start off with a list of names and addresses to go on the labels. Now this can come from a variety of sources, but let's say as an example that you have them in a number spreadsheet. What I'm going to do here is combine all of these things into a real address. So I'm going to start a formula with equals, and then here I'm going to use each one of these things to create it. So I'm going to start with the name, and then I'm going to do ampersand, and then quote, and then I'm going to use option return, and then quote again. That puts a line feed afterwards. Let's do ampersand, and then let's do the street. And then the same thing, ampersand, quote, option return, quote, and then ampersand. And then let's do the city, ampersand, quote, and then a comma and a space, quote, and then ampersand, and then the state, ampersand again, just a space in the quotes, and then the zip. And the result of that will give us a nice looking address. Copy, double click on the column title here and paste. So the formula is pasted there and you can see nice addresses here. So now I should be able to copy all of this and paste it into my Pages document. So let's create the Pages document next. So let's first assume that you don't have any kind of template to work with. You just have your sheet of labels. You can either measure it or maybe you could figure out from how many there are exactly what the measurements of each label are. Let's assume that we have a sheet that is 3 labels across and 11 labels vertically. I'm going to go in Pages here and go to File and Convert to Page Layout. It'll get rid of the body text and allow us to do whatever we want here with text boxes. Let's go to View and then Show Rulers and View and Show Layout. So now we could see everything here. We could go to Format and under Page turn off Show Header and Footer. So we have none of that. Now we can use the rulers to create guides. Since we know there are 3 across and maybe it goes edge to edge, there are no margins on these labels, I can drag from the left side here and place this line where it should go, which is about 0.83 right there and 5.66. And that divides the page up into 3 even portions, just using math there to divide 8.5 by 3. And now we know vertically, since there are 11 of them and they're 11 inches, that they're 1-inch labels. So we can add these lines here at 1-inch intervals all the way down the page. So there we go. We have our labels. Let's create a text box and take this text box and place it here in the first label. Now depending on your printer you may have margins you have to pay attention to. Like a good laser printer may have nothing or maybe just 1/4 of an inch here. But that's okay. You don't want the actual addresses to go up to the edge of the label anyway. So we'll take this and we'll put this in the center here and let's type in a sample address like that and get it to look like what we want. Maybe we want it to be left justified like that. Maybe we want to change the text here and make it a different style. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Make it bold so it stands out there. Let's make sure it's big enough to contain those 3 lines and really not much more. Now that we have that, we want to duplicate this text box in the other boxes. I'm going to use the Option key and click and drag with the Option and it will drag out a copy of that. And see how the guides there let me line it up pretty easily. I'll do it again and you can spend all the time you want trying to get it perfect. Now we can Shift click to select all three of these and Option drag down and do the same thing here. Option drag again. Maybe after you have a few of them you could click and drag around all of them. Option click, and you can see how quick and easy it is to duplicate these. Great. So the problem is now each one of these is an individual text box. We would have to copy each address and then paste it in and do it for all of them. But we can link these text boxes and do it more easily. So to link a text box, you see this round dot up here when it's selected? Click that and that will create the beginning of a linked list of text boxes. Green is the color that indicates the set and this is number 1. Let's select this one down here. I'll click and it changes to red, another set, but if we click again we can switch to green and now it's going to merge the threads. So now we go here, click, green, and you can see it's not going to warn us after that first time, so it's a lot quicker. And now we can go through and merge them all. So now we have 18 linked text boxes. If I select something in here and do Command A for select all, notice it selects everything there. I can delete and I can actually type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can see how it goes box to box like that. So now I can go back here, select all of these cells, copy, and then go to Pages and Command V to paste. And look what it does. It pastes them all in. Now it's using the style from Numbers. Let me undo and instead go to Edit, Paste and Match Style. And now it will use the style that we had for our Pages document. If I were to go in here and select all, you can see all the text is selected so I can adjust the size there like that. Now one of the nice things about doing this in Numbers here with formulas that use, remember we did Option return instead of return, that creates a line break that more closely links together the group. So the returns between each one of these and the return from here to here are different. That's why when we shrink it down it attempts to keep the address together. Now we've shrunk it down enough so 2 addresses can fit on 1 label. That's why that happened. But in general, even though there's room for another line, it's not going to. You can even see here the blue indicators here showing it's a special type of return there as opposed to a paragraph break there. Now we can adjust these. We can even change things like center them all like that. Note that if things are a little off center now there's a lot we can do. For instance, let me click outside of any of these boxes so I'm not selecting text anymore. Do Command A and I've selected all the text boxes rather than the text inside them. Now if I use the down arrow or drag I can move all of them at once. So maybe I could recenter these like that. If I need to make them larger then dragging one box isn't going to do it. But I can go to Format, Arrange, and notice how the height is 0.77. If I increase that or decrease that or change it using a manual number, it does it for all of those. The same thing for the width as well. So you could change the width to make it a little bit wider and they all change. Select them all again here and then use the left arrow, right arrow to move back and forth all together. So there's a lot you can do, and if things don't line up right you can always add an extra return or you can edit something just to make it just right. Now a lot of times you do have a template that you can work from. You don't have to start from scratch. For instance, go to one of the largest makers of label sheets and you can go to the templates page here. You can enter in the number that comes on the box there and notice that one of the templates that's usually included is Pages. So I can click there and download the template. In this case I get a template that looks like this. I'll open it up and you can see how it looks a lot like what we created except that things aren't linked together. So if I were to go into Numbers now and copy this column here, go back into here and paste, you can see it only pastes in that very first text box here. So I'm going to have to set things up so that I can link the boxes to each other. So I'll set this one up as green and I'll add for each one of these. So you can see I've linked them all. Let's select all the text again and delete and then I'll paste them back in and you can see how all the addresses that I have fill in here really nicely. Let's say I had twice as many addresses. I could paste them in there and you can see how this indicates there's more than what fit on this page. So instead of creating a second page, a handy thing to do is just print this first page and then select starting here. And I'm going to shift click to select here and then delete, and you deleted all of those, and these fill in here. I've got one more than I need. I'm going to forward arrow to the next one and then hit delete there. So now I can print the second sheet to finish my printing. Notice also now you can change the style to what you want. So you can change the font to something else. You could change the style, make it a little bit bigger, center it, do whatever you want here and do everything else we talked about. Like if I do Command A to select all, I could go to Format, Arrange, change the height a little bit, change the width like that. I can reselect them all again and maybe use the left arrow key a bunch of times there. Maybe recenter it, down arrow. So you can adjust everything in here to get it to look like what you want and then go ahead and print using this pre-made template that you've modified to make it easier to actually have these addresses put in here. And notice here if I select all and copy and then go to another document, let's say a Pages document, and I paste them all in, you can see what I get here. It's basically 3 lines per address in this case. It doesn't have to be 3. And you can generate this any way that you want. It doesn't have to come from numbers. You can just type this out if you like. Matter of fact, you could have a line break between each one just to make it easier to see. And just make sure that you include that extra line in here. If I paste this, you can see it's a bit of a mess. But if I select all of these text boxes, go and make all these text boxes tall enough, you can see it includes that extra line in there now. It doesn't matter if it overflows a little bit to the next label because there's nothing there to print. So now it works out nicely even though I'm starting with the document that has an extra break in there. So I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.